You the story about Danica. Danica is, she's the oldest sister, oldest girl of many siblings, and in her family, as most older sisters would have it, she was tasked with the mother hen role. So she was always expected to rescue her siblings from situations that they might be in, and that never died. That followed her through high school, undergrad, and law school. So now she's on the other side of law school. She's got her JD, and she hasn't been able to pass her bar exam. She has tried. She tried, oh my goodness, a ton of different tools. Themis and Adaptabar and Barbary and all of the all of them. She's paid the money for it. Her family has been very financially supportive. They have been. But where the support has ended is when a family member, namely a younger sister, would need help. She was expected to drop her studies and go help. So I had to dive deeper in with her. Was that like what you were expected to do for real? Like, did people call you up and say you must do this? And as it would turn out with further investigation, it was the trained obligation, the trained obligation to drop what she was doing and go to help her sisters. So then we went into the mindset piece of it, which is what we do when we work together one-on-one or in the group coaching programs. We went into the mindset piece of it, like what exactly would happen or not happen if you didn't follow your training. You see, what you'll learn, and if you're joining on new, go ahead and say hi. I love new people coming in. What you'll learn is that if you do not understand why you automatically do a certain behavior, if you don't understand why, it will get you every time. You might know you shouldn't do it. She knew that she needs to just focus on her studies and let them figure out their own business, but she couldn't get herself to do what she knew she ought to do. And so now we have to get into the reasons why you feel forced to do those things. And we get into that, like, I need to talk to you. I need to find out what the situation is, what the circumstances are, and get that, information out of you so I can show it to you and say, hey, listen, this is why your automatic reaction exists. And not just like, oh, because when I was 7, this happened to me, but we get down to the emotional reason behind it too. Because your brain has an emotional, trellis work of reasons that all amount to a physical fight or flight reaction. So you are literally going into fight or flight in your mind when you face the possibility of breaking your conditioning or your training. So we have to get down and unravel the emotional anchor to that fight or flight reaction so that you can take over your life instead of everybody else's requests pushing out your priorities. Does that make sense to you? If it makes sense to you, go ahead and throw me a thumbs up and let me know, yeah, that makes complete sense. I understand exactly why something like that would happen. And if you want to get into like unraveling that mess, you can always look for a link to a confidence kickstart call where we start to talk about, okay, how this is, what your situation is and how it is ingrained emotionally in you such that you're not able to actually override your fight or flight or your emotions and just do what you're supposed to do. Okay, the same situation happens in other families' circumstances. Let's talk about Gail. And her family tends to like use her as a piggy bank. It's really, really weird because if you are a law student, you would think that people wouldn't be asking you for money. But if you're not in that situation, good for you. There are some students that graduated and like their parents are asking them for money. Because the way they look at it, I mean, you've gone to law school. I mean, you can. I mean, how did you get to law school to begin with? And maybe they're particularly good with money. Or maybe their parents didn't ask them for money while they were in law school, but their parents kind of look at them as the more successful of the bunch. And so they kind of expect a person like Gail to like come out of pocket when family things come up, right? Maybe she's held a job all through law school, or maybe she's finished with law school, hasn't passed the bar, but she still has a good job. Family expects her to kick in with some extra money for emergencies that might happen, or they'll bring to her all their financial complaints, waiting for her to offer to help. Here's the thing about Gail, because she hasn't been able to pass the bar. It's been 3 times now. The thing about that, and I want you to think about your life and see if this might apply to you or someone you know, or if a version of this story might apply to you. You here with me? So, hey Devin, say hi. I'm so glad you're here. So, the situation in her life is such that her family always expected her to show out, show up, show big with financial resources or solutions or things like that. And so when she approached the bar exam, she had the smarts. And there were some other mindset issues there too, which when you get to talk to your personal mentor, you get to go into all what the little details are that converge and make this a bar exam hurdle, right? So she had other mindset things there too, but what was really getting her was that when she saw her life on the other side of the bar exam, which is something that I teach you to do when we work together, I get you to like fast forward so that we can pinpoint what the problems are, what you're scared of. She saw her life on the other side of the bar exam as one where she would have to fork over even more cash, because now she doesn't have the excuse of, I'm taking the bar, I need to pay for bar exam expenses, or I don't have my full salary yet because I'm not a lawyer yet. She no longer has those excuses in her future life. And therefore, she will be obligated to show up even more and show out even more. And her sense of pride and like fulfillment and all that was coming from her paying out family expenses. So in her mind, if she wanted to be proud and feel like she met her family obligations and all those things, she would have an even greater burden because now she has more money. So we had to do the work like for her, because everybody is different. For her, where did that anchor come in? Why do you like feel the urge to always volunteer and raise your hand? And we had to get down to the emotional reason why it was hard to say no or hard to hold back to begin with. Because not in all situations was she being asked. It had now become an automatic programming. And that's what we get to when we do this work and mindset work past the bar exam, because I work with attorneys and people who have graduated and passed the bar exam all the time. But when we do this work, we go into what is the emotional thing that is tying you to this behavior, such that the behavior is an automatic thing people expect it of you, right? And how can we dissolve that emotional anchor? We're not destroy it, obliterate it. We just want to melt it away so that you can be free to make your own decisions and not be tied to doing the thing that you've always done. My mind made a little tickle there, right? If you're here and Gail's problem of like being the family piggy bank sounds like something that you or someone you might deal with, I want to hear like thumbs up. Tell me you hear me. Let me know that you're here, and this, it makes sense how the emotions could be anchoring down this automatic trigger of show up with the cash, and that if you believe that you are the piggy bank for your family, then you might be holding yourself back from passing the bar exam because you don't want to be that piggy bank anymore. You're tired of it. And you know that obligation is only going to become heavier the more money you make. That does exist. So let me know if that resonates with you. And the tickle that I had in the back of my mind was that when Gail does, in fact, make that shift and stops being the family piggy bank, it was her automatic behavior for decades. What's going to happen is that people's feathers are going to be ruffled. And in that situation, it's great that Gail is making these changes alongside with us, with the community support, with a mentor to talk to, because when people's feathers are ruffled, you need a safety net. You need a place that you know you can go to and how to and learn how to process that in a good way that doesn't get in the way of your bar exam. Because sometimes the things you have to do for your bar exam will ruffle the feathers, and the ruffling of the feathers could end up impacting your bar exam too. That's why it's really important to do this in community support, or knowing you have a mentor to fall back on, somebody that you can call or email right away, because when you make these certain changes for the sake of your bar exam, other things change too. You can't change without other people needing to change or fall away, right? So once you get this advice for your bar exam and you start applying it, you want to make sure you have someone you can go to process what's happening. And we want to process it in a smart way. We don't do blaming or pointing the fingers, because that's not helpful. And all that does is it alienates and it cuts off relationships, etc. When you process relationships in the mindful way that you learn through bar exam mentor programs or mindset mentor programs, the way that I teach you, when you process it in this way, you actually end up in peace. Whether the relationships end or not, it does so peacefully. You almost didn't notice that that relationship ended. You almost didn't notice that person just fell away. So I wanted to point that out to you because that tickled the back of my brain when we were talking about Gail and how she was going to have to stop being the family piggy bank. Feathers will be ruffled, and it's good that she has a place to come to get that help to process the relationships and what's happening in her life such that everything remains emotionally balanced still, even though people outside of her are getting, upset. And the final person is Rakim. We're talking about Rakim because he's the family lion, right? And he's the one that people go to for help. He's the one that people, need to have resolving the problems. And then his family also thinks that lawyers are like what they see on TV. They make big money right out of law school. And so Rakim is kind of like the confluence, the combination of Danica and Gail. So he has like heightened issues to deal with in that area. Plus he's got like the monkey wrench, and I don't know if that's the right way to say it, that he's a man. How many of us have heightened expectations of what men are supposed to do in a family situation, right? If you have like this gender stereotype or cultural conditioning, just watching TV, we have a heightened stereotype of what a man is supposed to do. And so Rakim has both of those, right? And he's dealing with the shame in his eyes of living at home with parents because he hasn't passed the bar exam yet. So can you guess what it is that he's supposed to do to be able to overcome that? Can you guess just from hearing, okay, Danica and Gail's story, what Rakim might be facing that he needs to work on? Let me see if I have any responses in the comments. As I sip my morning coffee. So with Rakim, what we turned and looked at was, it had nothing to do with any of those things. It's so funny. And that's why coming and having a chat with the bar exam mentor is so illuminating, right? Our consultation calls are down to 30 minutes because we have so many people we're serving, we can't be on the phone for a whole hour. But 30 minutes for $30 is a steal anyway. And then you get to kind of like get a quick insight into what's really happening. And with Rakim, the issue was not the family responsibilities and the money and this, because all those things he was game for, all those things he was happy to provide. What was happening, which was holding him back from getting his position and money in life, was a completely unrelated thing, completely unrelated. And we sussed it out by looking at what was happening at work. And like some people who were like getting on his nerves at work. Do you have somebody who is getting on your nerves somewhere in your life? Work, home, wherever it may be. Because that is a telltale sign of what you need to work on next, mindset-wise. So the person who was getting on his nerves at work turned out to be displaying a characteristic that he actually needed to look at for himself. This person was being a butthead, basically, right? They were arguing over everything that was given to them as an assignment. They were always complaining. They were always kind of like following their own rules or shirking the rules. And, we lawyer types sometimes we're rule followers, and, we pay attention to the people who don't follow the rules. And so when we dug in deeper, he had a judgment against these people. And we get into like judgments. We're not saying it's a bad thing. Judgments your brain has to make. You have to like, this is good, this is bad. Don't walk in the middle of the street with oncoming traffic. Like your brain has to make these quick categorizations of life, people, and situations. And some of the, categorization comes from what we're taught by our parents. So our parents have taught us by example or explanation, examples and explanations, that being this way is bad. And so he took that on like, okay, you got to be a rule follower, you got to do this, and questioning authority and all that stuff is bad. Well, as we talked more about Rakim and the life that he looks at after the bar exam, which again, this is coming up again, important point, you have to be able to fast forward to what your life looks like after the bar exam, and that's where we start to pinpoint what it is that's stopping you, right? But as he fast forwarded and looked at his life post bar, he realized that as he was today, if he was to be the breadwinner, the provider, the problem solver, and all those things, he was really going to have to put his foot down in certain areas, ruffle some feathers, say no to a lot of people, turn people away, make executive decisions that others would not agree with. There were all kinds of things in front of him. Plus, the job he wanted to do, he could not do with his current personality. So he was going to have to make a choice. And your personality is not fixed. You can change your personality. You chose your personality to fit in with the life that was given to you. Hey, Yuri. But you do not have to stick to the personality that was given to you when you were a kid, the one that you were trained to adopt by family interactions and by school interactions. You can change who you are. And we discovered that he needed to understand that he can change his personality, but that two, he was going to need to change that personality to do the job that he wanted to do post bar. And that came out of our having a 1 hour talk together. I say all this to say that your family situations could be the highlight of a deeper issue that's holding you back on the bar exam. And if you have the chance, which all of you do, because I'm popping the link in right here, if you have the chance to have a conversation with a mindset mentor, which right now it's me because I haven't hired on and trained any new bar exam mindset mentors, but if you're open for training, talk to me about that too. But if you have the chance to talk to a mindset mentor and really get into what your situation is currently at the moment and what needs to change so that you can release the unconscious mindset blocks, because that's the thing, guys, it's unconscious, so that you can release the unconscious mindset block, the unconscious thing that's keeping you from passing, right? Get a chance to have a conversation to get insight into what's holding you back so that you can address it and skip that part. We don't have to do the bar exam many times over again. You can skip that part, right? By getting to what the unconscious blocks are right away. There's plenty of ways to find out what academic things that you might be lacking. But there are very few people out there helping you to suss out in the inner recesses of your mind what's stopping you mentally and emotionally from passing this bar exam. And mindset is a big piece of the game. Talk to any athlete. Your mindset is a big piece of your performance game. That's what I have for you. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. I popped this link in for you for those of you who are new, you've never had a call with me before, and you need to get that insight. You need to start